I hope that the Israeli government does accept because the need for a ceasefire couldn't be more urgent. That's been the case for months, but it's as true today as it has been for a while. I think that the difficulty is that right now, President Biden needs this to go forward. He needs for Americans to see him leading on the foreign policy plane. He needs to see, he needs particularly folks from his progressive base to understand that he's taking action on this front, and that his presidency is not corrupted by his failures with regard to the Gaza Strip. But I think that what's difficult is that Benjamin Netanyahu's needs are equally powerful. I think politically speaking, Netanyahu understands that as soon as the war is over, scrutiny of him for his performance in the war and for the broader corruption allegations will intensify. And I think he also understands that he may lose his coalition. And so there may be electoral pressures on him. And so these two leaders are caught in kind of a dance at this juncture. And neither of them wants explicitly to defy the other for political reasons, but their interests are not aligned.
And what about the deal itself? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's vague. So let me start off by saying the most important thing, which is that it's long overdue. And I think that there is a framework there that could be the framework. There's a framework there that could be an adequate framework for forward action. I think the fact that there's a recognition that military action on both sides would stop, and that there would be a release of hostages and of prisoners, that's a basic first step. And even if it's not fully realized in the first phase and it takes some time for the second phase to be performed, that's okay. I think that where things are difficult is in relation to two things. Number one, I think that the plan is very vague about what the future of the Gaza Strip will be. And what we know from past experience is that there's no way for the Gaza Strip to be rebuilt unless it is connected politically, economically, and socially back to the West Bank, as was initially imagined during the Oslo process. And that seems very far from what Israel's idea, what at least the Israeli War Cabinet's idea of what the future of the Gaza Strip should be. And what the signaling that we're hearing is that there would be an Israeli occupation or at minimum a significant Israeli military presence for some time to come. So I think that that's challenge number one. Challenge number two, which is maybe even more formidable, is that the Netanyahu government has framed as its goal the elimination of Hamas as a political and military actor in the Gaza Strip. And that's not an easy thing to get Hamas to agree to, right? And so flipness aside, I think that the moment has come for the United States to decide on whether it's going to draw a line and say, actually, to an important client state, this is it. For a range of reasons, this is it. And I think Biden maybe hoped that he wouldn't have to draw a line emphatically, that he could do it subtly, and that Netanyahu would go along. But I think that maybe was wishful thinking.
Several European governments announced their plans to formally recognise the state of Palestine, not the US. What is the case for the US and Joe Biden to pivot?
So, I mean, I think that there is a case in terms of both domestic politics and in terms of the United States international standing. The US was the first state to recognize Israel in 1948 when it issued its Declaration of Independence. So there is a precedent, as it turns out, for the United States to recognize a state in this context without the consent of the other party in the mix. And so there would be a symmetry, I think, in recognizing Palestine that would be noticed by Palestinians and by Palestine supporters. In terms of American domestic politics, I think that Biden's progressive base is not going to be energized by recognition of a state of Palestine absent concrete action toward a ceasefire. But with concrete action toward a ceasefire, this enables the Biden administration to demonstrate to domestic critics that it actually has a vision for the future, and that it's a vision that is inspired by the idea of mutual self-determination, of equality between Palestinians and Israelis, which has really been absent from American messaging for a long time. And then I think finally, at the geopolitical level, what's clear is that the Biden administration cares a lot about sealing the deal between the United States and Saudi Arabia and between Israel and Saudi Arabia. It regards that as crucial to creating a regional security framework that can be sustainable going forward. And the Saudis have made very, very clear that what they're looking for is irreversible steps toward Palestinian statehood. And I think that few things would feel as irreversible to leaders in Riyadh as the United States recognizing the state of Palestine. On top of all of that, Palestinians have long heard lip service from the United States that their right to self-determination is something the U.S. cares about. And this would be a great way of showing.
Professor Omar Dajani, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.